The generator coughs, then dies. The lights flicker once and the hospital barrack plunges into darkness. Someone screams, not from pain. From recognition, boots pound outside on frozen gravel. A whistle shrieks. Metal doors slam shut one after another, sealing the camp like a coffin. Inside the infirmary, the smell of iodine mixes with blood and wet wool. A patient tries to sit up. A guard shouts for silence. No one listens. In the sudden blackness, a single lamp is struck to life. Its weak flame reveals her face, calm, focused, untouched by panic. The female doctor tightens her gloves, as if this is an ordinary night, as if alarms aren't blaring, as if men aren't dying faster than she can treat them, as if the guards outside aren't calling her name, not her rank, not her title, but her name. A wounded prisoner grabs her sleeve and whispers, barely audible, they know. She doesn't answer. She only looks toward the door, because whatever is happening outside, it's happening because of her, and the question that will haunt this camp long after the lights return is simple. Who was Shirley? Asterisk, the camp sat deep inside occupied Germany, far from bombed cities and prying eyes. Officially, it was a prisoner of war hospital camp. Designated for injured Allied soldiers no longer useful for labor, but not important enough for exchange. Rows of barbed wire cut through pine forest. Watchtowers loomed like skeletal fingers. The Red Cross had inspected it twice and left satisfied. On paper, it was quiet, controlled, humane. But paper lies. By the winter of 1943, the hospital barracks were overflowing. Men arrived with shrapnel wounds, frostbite, untreated infections, and diseases that spread faster than any rumor. Supplies were scarce. Morphine was rationed. Surgeries were performed with dull instruments and colder hands, and then, without explanation, she arrived. No announcement, no ceremony. A simple transfer order stamped and signed. A female doctor, German, mid-30s, signed full authority over medical operations inside a POW. Came an unusual appointment in a system obsessed with hierarchy and suspicion. The guards didn't trust her. The prisoners didn't understand her. And the camp commandant didn't like surprises, but she worked relentlessly. 12 hours, then 16, then more. She treated prisoners and guards alike. She corrected diagnoses made by senior male physicians and was always right. She spoke little about her past. Her accent didn't quite match her papers, and when questioned, she deflected with efficiency. It's not fear. What was at stake was more than lives. It was order, because in a place designed to break men slowly, she was changing the rhythm. Prisoners were surviving when they shouldn't have. Records were being revised. Death counts didn't align. And somewhere between the operating table and the watchtower, something invisible began to shift. No one could name it yet, but everyone could feel it. Asterisk. The first body disappeared on a Tuesday, a British sergeant admitted with pneumonia. Weak, but stable. Marked for recovery. His bed was full when lights went out that night. By morning, it was empty. No transfer papers. No death certificate. No burial record. The guards blamed chaos. The clerks blamed exhaustion. The prisoners whispered names through cracked lips and prayed the coughs wouldn't take them next. Then it happened again and again. Always patients assigned to her ward. Always cases she personally reviewed. Always men who, according to the charts, should have survived. The commandant demanded answers. She provided knownly immaculate records, perfectly organized, signed in confident ink. No errors, no gaps. Nothing to accuse, but suspicion doesn't need proof. It needs pattern. Guards began watching her. Prisoners began watching the guards. And she noticed everything. Then came the night of the generator failure. A sudden blackout across the camp. Alarms triggered by nothing. Searchlights frozen mid-sweep. And inside the hospital, as panic spread, guard burst through the infirmary. Doors are faced, face, pale. "There's an order," he said. From Berlin, she didn't ask which department. She only removed her gloves, because she already knew what the order was for. Asterisk. The blackout does not arrive like a switch being flipped. It arrives like something dying. First, the ceiling lights hum low, uneven, strained. The sound crawls across the ward like an insect trapped in glass. Then one bulb bursts with a dry pop, scattering sparks onto the floor. Another dims to a weak amber glow. Shadows stretch, distort, crawl up the walls, and then darkness. For half a second, no one breathes. Then everything happens at once. A patient screams, not in pain and terror. Another begins coughing violently, the sound wet and deep, echoing through the wooden barracks. A metal tray clatters to the floor, instruments skidding across planks like fleeing animals. Somewhere outside, a siren begins to wail, and then abruptly cuts off, as if strangled mid-cry. The smell changes immediately. Iodine, blood, damp wool, blankets. Sweat soaked into straw mattresses. And underneath it, all the sharp, electric scent of fear. In the dark, men reach for anything solid. Bed rails, sleeves, hands they do not recognize. Someone whispers a prayer in English. Another curses in Polish. A third laughs once too loud. Two Hyand is immediately silent. Then a match flares. Its tiny flame throws monstrous shadows across the ward. Faces stretch and twist, eyes reflecting firelight like animals caught in headlights. The flame trembles as the hand holding it shakes. A nurse drops it. Darkness again, and through all of it, she moves. Her boots make no sound on the floorboards. She knows every step, every loose plank, every corner where a shadow hides longer than it should. Her hands reach out automatically, guiding, steadying, pressing shoulders down, forcing men back onto beds before panic turns fatal. "Stay still," she says. Her voice is calm, low, controlled, not loud enough to command, certain enough to be obeyed. Someone grabs her wrist. A prisoner, eyes wide, breath shallow. His fingers are freezing. "They're coming," he whispers. "They're coming for you." She does not pull away. She leans closer. Her face inches from his, and for a moment her expression cracks not with fear, but with something heavier. Calculation, regret, resolve. "Then listen carefully," she says. "If anyone asks tonight, you saw nothing." Boots thunder outside. Orders are shouted. German, fast, sharp, confused. Searchlights snap on beyond the windows. Slicing through the forest, beams jittering wildly as their operators struggle with dead radios and partial power. The white light flashes through the infirmary windows in brief. Blinding pulses faces, illuminated for a heartbeat. Then gone again. A guard slams into the door, rattling it in its frame. "Open up," he shouts. "Medical staff only." No one moves, because no one knows who still counts as staff anymore. She reaches the door first, when she opens it. The guard recoils slightly, not because she looks dangerous, but because she doesn't look afraid. "Generator failure," she says before he can speak. "Patient's unstable. You'll make it worse." Behind him, the camp is chaos. Guards run in opposing directions. One drags a cable through mud. Another screams into a radio that hisses uselessly in response. An officer strikes a subordinate hard enough to knock him to the ground, and immediately regrets it when the man doesn't get back up. Overhead, engines roared, not German, too deep. Too many bombers passed somewhere beyond the clouds, their presence felt more than heard. Every man in the camp knows that sound, knows what it means, knows how close it might be. The guard swallows theirs. "An order," he says. "From command?" She tilts her head slightly. "Then give it to me." He hesitates. That hesitation costs him everything from the watchtower. A flare suddenly ignites, bathing half the camp in red light. For a brief moment, everything is visible. The wire, the mud, the bodies moving like ants beneath a boot. And in that red glow, the guard realizes something too late. She is not reacting. She is waiting. Asterisk inside the infirmary. The patients feel it before they understand it. The tension tightens, like a rope pulled another inch closer to snapping. Someone begins to sob quietly. Another whispers a name over and over again. The doctor closes the door gently. Then she turns. Lights. She says softly. The nurses hesitate. Now. The obey oil lamps are lit one by one. The ward emerges from darkness in fragments. Pools of light separated by long corridors of shadow. Faces half seen. Limbs unmoving. She moves to the center of the room. Asterisk for the next 10 minutes. She says, "You are not soldiers. You are not prisoners. You are patients. Anyone who can walk does not. Anyone who cannot does not speak." A pause. "If you do exactly as I say, you may live." No one questions her authority. They are past that. Outside. The commandant receives incomplete information. The generator is down, but sabotage is suspected. Several patients' unaccounted for but records show deaths already logged. A female doctor is at the center of every discrepancy, every altered form, every unexplained survival. And now, Berlin is calling. The commandant stares at the telephone as if it might explode. He has survived. Purges, investigations, transfers that were death sentences in disguise. He knows how this works. Someone must be blamed. Someone must be sacrificed to restore order. Asterisk. And she is perfect, unusual, unprotected, convenient. He orders a full search. Not later, not tomorrow. Now, the hospital is to be cleared room by room. No exceptions. Back inside. She hears the order before it reaches her, not through radios. Through silence, the camp grows unnaturally quiet, the way it does before a storm breaks. Boots slow. Voices lower. Commands become deliberate. She closes her eyes for half a second, then she moves. She crosses to a supply cabinet at the far end of the ward. Opens it. Removes a box of bandages. Beneath it, another box. And beneath that wooden panel with a seam, too. It's clean to be accidental. She kneels. Her fingers slide into the groove. Behind her, a nurse shakes her head. Another turns away, unable to watch. The panel. Liftstock cold air rises from below, and with it the sound of breathing. Shallow. Controlled. Alive. She whispers down into the darkness. It's time. Movement. Below, careful, painful. A hand emerges first. Then a shoulder. A face gaunt, but alert. Eyes reflecting the lamplight like something reborn. Men officially recorded as dead begin to surface from the floor of a German POW hospital. And above them, footsteps approach closer, closer. The first door down the corridor opens. A guard coughs. A dog barks. She replaces the bandage box. The panels slide shut. She stands. Just as the door to the ward slams open, the search has begun. Asterisk, the first guard enters the ward with his rifle raised. Not. Aimed, dash ready. His eyes move fast, darting from bed to bed. Counting bodies, counting shadows, trying to reconcile what he sees with what he expects to see. His boots stop just inside the doorway, as if the room itself might bite behind him. 2 more guards follow. Then a dog. The animal's claws click softly on the wooden floor. Its nose drops immediately, tracing invisible paths only it can see. The handler tightens the leash. The doctor does not move to block them. She steps aside. That is the first mistake they don't realize they've made. The guards fan out. One checks patient tags. Another flips through charts stacked on a rolling tray. The third moves toward the supply cabinets. His rifle barrel knocking lightly against metal with each step. The dog pulls hard. Hard the handler curses under his breath and yanks the leash back. Just as the animal reaches the exact spot where the hidden panel lies beneath the floorboards, the dog whines. Low. Uncertain. The handler hesitates. The doctor speaks that. Ward had gangrene cases, she says calmly. We treated them with phenol. The scent lingers. Handler relaxes. He nods, reassured by medical authority he does not understand but instinctively respects. The leash slackens. The dog sits, breathing, Continues. Beneath the floor, slow, silent. A guard at the far end of the ward holds up a chart. This one, he says. Prisoner listed as deceased, but the bed is warm. The commandant enters then. His presence shifts the air. He does not shout. He does not rush. He removes his gloves slowly, deliberately, as if this is not a crisis, but a procedure. His eyes lock onto hers immediately. They have never trusted each other. They have never confronted each other until now. Doctor, he says, explain. She walks to the bed in question, pulls back the blanket, reveals a man breathing shallowly, chest barely rising, skin pale but unmistakably alive. Clerical error, she says. Corrected internally. I intended to notify administration in the morning. The commandant looks at the prisoner, then back at her. Berlin does not tolerate internal corrections, he replies, especially during evacuations. That word lands heavy. Evacuation. It means one thing in a POW camp. Loose ends. Outside, engines roar again, closer now. The distant thud of artillery ripples through the ground. Dust shakes loose from the rafters. Somewhere, glass shatters. The war is moving faster than the paperwork. The commandant lowers his voice. You have exceeded your authority, he says, repeatedly. Yes, she answers. A murmur spreads among the guards. That single word, so simple, so unafraid, changes the temperature of the room. You altered death records, he continues. You concealed prisoners. You interfered with scheduled transfers. Yes. You understand the charge? She meets his eyes. Completely. Silence. The commandant exhales slowly, as if disappointed rather than angry. Then you understand why I cannot allow you to leave this camp. Something flickers across her face. Not fear time. She glances, just briefly, toward the window and outside. Everything changes. A deafening explosion erupts beyond the wire. Not close enough to destroy, but close enough to panic. The ground lurches. Men stumble. The lights flicker again, this time violently. One oil lamp shatters. Flames licking across the floor, for a nurse smothers it with a blanket. Shouts erupt from the yard. All units positions. Positions. The camp is no longer a controlled space. It is a target. In the confusion, she moves, not running, not rushing. She steps toward the commandant. You have a choice, she says quietly. Order my arrest and lose control of this camp within the hour. Or let me finish what I started. He stares at her. What you started, he repeats. You mean treason? She leans closer, just enough for him to hear her over the noise. I mean survival. Yours included. Another explosion dashed closer. The dog barks wildly. Guards shout conflicting orders. Someone drops a rifle. Somewhere beyond the hospital, a watchtower collapses with a shriek of tearing wood. The commandant hesitates. That hesitation is fatal to certainty. From beneath the floor, a cough escapes. Soft, human. Every head turns. The handler freezes. The commandant's eyes snap downward. For a fraction of a second, the truth is visible on his face. Not outrage, not fury, but awe. How many? He asks. She doesn't answer. She doesn't need to, because at that moment, the order from Berlin finally arrives, transmitted through a damaged line. Crackling, distorted, delayed beyond usefulness. The camp is to be abandoned immediately. Records. Destroyed, non-essential personnel reassigned. Prisoners. Moved or eliminated DAT officer. Discretion. The commandant closes his eyes when he opens them. The war has already made the decision for him. He turns to the guards. Clear the ward, he says. Everyone out. They hesitate. He repeats the order louder. They obey. One by one, guards file out. The handler pulls the dog away. The last man pauses at the door, looks back at the doctor, and for reasons he will never articulate, nods once before leaving. The door shuts. She exhales. Only. Now she drops to her knees and tears up the floor panel. Hands emerge again. Faces. Bodies. Shaking with exhaustion and disbelief. Men who were supposed to be corpses crawl into the light. "You have 15 minutes, she tells them. "Follow the nurses. Say nothing. If you are stopped, collapse." Outside, chaos reigns. Files burn in barrels. Vehicles start and stall. Officers argue over routes that no longer exist. The sky glows faintly orange from fires too distant to see, and in the confusion, she disappears by the time the commandant returns to the ward. It is empty, beds stripped, charts gone, floor sealed. No prisoners, no doctor, only the lingering smell of phenol. And the certainty that something irreversible has just happened? Asterisk. The camp does not fall in flames, it empties. That is what surprises those who later investigate it, not destruction. Not a final battle, but absence. Gates left ajar. Watchtowers abandoned mid-shift. Barracks stripped of anything worth carrying. Ash barrels still warm, filled with the remains of files that once claimed to explain everything. When Allied units arrive days later, they find silence. Snow has fallen again. Thin and clean, softening boot prints, blurring tracks, erasing urgency. The hospital stands intact. Beds neatly aligned. Instruments cleaned and wrapped as if awaiting the next patient. But there are no patients, and there is no. Investigators move through the infirmary slowly. They photograph. They catalog. They measure. Everything appears correct to correct. Death registers match burial records. Supply inventories align perfectly with requisition forms. Except they don't. Not quite, eh? British medical officer notices something odd in the margins of several charts. A recurring notation initials that do not correspond to any known staff member. A pattern in handwriting that appears across months of records. Even when signatures change, someone has been rewriting history quietly. A floorboard creaks differently near the supply cabinets. When lifted, it reveals a hidden space, empty now, but unmistakably used. Blankets, scraps of gauze, a single dropped button from a POW. Uniformed enough to raise questions, not enough to answer them. Survivors begin to speak weeks later. Not all at once, not loudly. Former prisoners, scattered across hospitals and repatriation camps, tell remarkably similar stories. A woman doctor, German, but not quite. Stern, but fair. Someone who never asked for gratitude and never explained herself. She said survival was a form of resistance. She told me to pretend to be dead. She corrected my name. She knew where. The guards would look and where they wouldn't. Insists she saved their lives directly. Others say she vanished before they could thank her. A few claim she warned them not to remember her too clearly, because remembering her could be dangerous. Military intelligence listens. Carefully then stops listening altogether. There is no category for her. She does not fit resistance profiles. No confirmed partisan ties. No radio transmissions. No known handlers. No paper trail leading out of Germany or into it. Her personnel file is requested from Berlin. It does not exist. Her transfer order, once cited by camp officials, cannot be located in any archive. The stamp is real. The signature is authentic. But the department that supposedly issued it denies involvement. Someone forged authority at the highest level, or borrowed it. Years later, a diary surfaces in a private collection, belonging to a former camp commandant. Most of it is administrative tedium. Supply shortages, complaints, requests denied. Until the final pages, there was a doctor, he writes. I do not know who sent her. I do not know who she served. But the camp bent around her decisions, and I let it happen. She was a traitor. Then she chose her targets carefully. She was loyal, then it was not to us. The entry ends abruptly. No name, no conclusion. Historians debate her endlessly. Some argue she was an intelligence asset, embedded so deeply even the system believed she belonged. Others insist she was simply a physician who refused to let a uniform decide.
lived.
A few suggest something more unsettling, that she represented a rare fracture in the machinery of war. Where rules failed and conscience slipped through, there are no photographs of her that can be verified. One image circulates occasionally. A woman in a white coat, slightly out of focus, standing near a hospital doorway. Her face half turned away from the camera. The negative is damaged, the provenance unclear. Most archives reject it, but former prisoners recognize her instantly. They point to the posture, the hands, the way she stands, not waiting, not fleeing, but finished. In interviews conducted decades later, survivors are asked what became of her. They all answered differently. She escaped west. She went underground. She changed her name. She never left. And one man, old, thin, his voice barely holding, says something else entirely. She didn't disappear, he says. She just stopped being visible. The war ends. Files close. Monuments rise. But the question remains. In a system designed to erase individuality, to process humans as numbers, one woman rewrote outcomes without ever claiming credit. She left no manifesto, no confession, no final speech, only living witnesses who were never meant to survive. And that is why, even now, no one can fully explain the female. Doctor assigned to a German POW camp. Hospital, because history prefers heroes with names, and she chose anonymity instead. The camp went quiet. The records stayed silent. And somewhere between those two silences, she made her decision and vanished into it.